2 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Black Westchester Magazine presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com. I am your host, A.J. Woodson. Damon K. Jones on hiatus as usual. Cynthia Turnquest Jones out there fighting the power like she normally does. Shout to Brenda L. Crump. We have in the studio, we have Dr. Robert Baskerville from the Brooklyn Baskervilles.
Yes.
Back again, we have the lovely Lorraine Lopez.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you. The honor's all mine.
And first time in about a year and a half, we have County Legislator Ken Jenkins in the house, who's running for county executive.
Appreciate you. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
We are also honored,
No, the honor's mine. I appreciate you doing anything because you and I appreciate you being able to speak tonight.
Absolutely. So, and then we got Ricky Maxwell chiming in, a friend of the show.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Always holding us down. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. It's always an honor.
Thank
you.
So, real quick, Lorraine, what have you been up to? It's been 2 weeks since you've been here. What have you been up to?
Can I tell you a little story about what happened to me this weekend?
Absolutely.
All right, can I curse?
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
All right,
that couldn't possibly be the objection.
Yeah.
Not me.
I mean, I wouldn't get crazy. I wouldn't crazy with it, but I mean, we ain't got no FCC to hold us out.
I'm not trying, but I might get angry.
Oh, but you've never been here when Damien turns into the Incredible Hulk.
Oh, yes, I have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes,
and when Dr. Robert Baskerville turns into Brooklyn Bob, you're like, damn it!
Okay, so this is what happened to me, and I'm gonna make it real quick.
Okay.
You know, there's a group of us that we have this blogs. You know, Yonkers Voice. We have Dell, who's gonna be on the show soon. You got myself. I'm not a reporter, but I like to say I like to inform people. I call myself a message blog. I put the message out there. They do what they want with it. But I'm not trying to be a reporter. I've been asked to, but that's not who I am.
Still trying to get you to write something for Black
Now, we got
Westchester.
this idiot by the name of Brian Harrod that has this, and I'm not even going to bless him with saying the name of what he has going. But he decided that, and this group of us, and we include you and Damien and Black Westchester as part of this group, of this little area that we kind of represent there. And there's not many of us. There's only 5 or 6, and I happen to be the only female. Hi.
We have the lovely Brooke walking in the studio with the new dude.
Beautiful.
So go ahead.
Okay. So let me make this real quick. So this guy, for whatever reason, decided that I was a threat to him.
Yeah, because now let me stop you real quick, because I'm part of his pages. I administrate some of the pages.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, you know, and he's giving
You
me
saw
stories.
that.
He's giving me stories before. Then I seen he was going really hard on Mike. So I was like, yo, you know, this dude's like going hard on Mike, like
Because he's
Mike
representing
Cater.
London.
So, and you know, I'm like, okay, so I see that, and then I see, you know, he posted a lot of stuff from the Journal, from Black Westchester, and from everywhere else.
Yeah. He's a
Associating-
cut and paste reporter.
associating Mike with the Spezio situation. I was like, yo, I don't know what he did to him, but he done got under his skin some
Nobody
kind of
done
way.
nothing to this man. The man is crazy, period. And he felt a little threatened because I just came back into the game. I just opened my little group up, and I'm already 1/3 of the way to what it took him to take years to do. He's
Well,
also,
I saw he said something about every
put my
time you write
mugshot
something,
out there. He
every
did
time you
more
write
than
something negative about Mike, you delete it or something. Or,
damn straight I do. I do, because he can't come into my page and do what he wants. No, you ask me permission. That's my page. You know, I'm the queen of that page. That's it, period. So he decided that for whatever reason he went after me. But, this man didn't just go after me. He went for the jugular. I mean, he went after me personally.
Right.
He went after me personally. He posted my mug. Yo, I got 7 mugshots. Why can't you put a nice one up there? You know what I'm saying? That pissed me off, too.
Because I was sitting there like, oh, my God.
Show
Like,
my good side.
But guess what? That's old news.
Yeah.
That's old news.
But I'm saying the fact that he put it out there, yeah.
And I've been there before. It's been posted before. I've done that. I've got the thick skin. And you know what? He almost broke me because for 2 days I cried. But I got word for him. Yo, it ain't going to happen. And guess what? From now on, he's going to be my bitch. And I'm going to make sure that. He's going to be my bitch. And I
That's
can guarantee
serious
you,
right there.
I can guarantee you that Yonkers voice and every one of those fellas, see, because they told me today I'm part of the team, so I think I'm cool now. Yo, every one of them has my back. Every single one of my has my back. But I say this, if you're going to be part of the community and you want to empower the community, you want to influence the community, you want to bring change to the community, and that's what you say you're doing, then do that. Don't go after people personally. Don't go after somebody's livelihood. Don't go after a single woman that's trying to make it out there, you know?
Right.
Don't do that because, you see, he's a little boy. I'm an OG. He doesn't realize that. He does not realize that.
When
you
I
know?
said- when I
so
saw
now
that-
I'm going to torture his ass, but I'm not putting him on my page, you see, because it's personal now. And I just wanted him to get the message because don't fuck with me. period.
You sound like you are right at home right now. That's how we love it right there.
Serious. Yo, I
Absolutely.
went from the Honorable Lorraine Lopez.
Damon would be proud of you.
With 65 Trailblazer Awards, and I went right back to Lorraine Lopez, the Savage Nomad. So the only thing that I got to say to him is be thankful you're alive, period. Period.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to end it like that.
So, yeah, because
Thank
I knew, like, you roll with us. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I watched the situation, and I seen it on Facebook, and I was like, uh-oh. I don't think she need no help with that one. I think she got that. Like,
No,
I'm
no,
just,
I got
you know,
this. I got this. My boys have me, too, and I
I've
was
talked
really
to
impressed.
I talked to him since then because he was like, he basically was like, yeah, such and such and such. I said, well, you know, Mike's been on the show. He said, yeah. Well, go ahead and ask him for some advertising. I said, actually, Mike has an ad up on the page already. So I was like, you know, I mean, like,
No,
I got no problem with, I mean, you know, we had the Spezio thing. We had the conversation personally and on the air. And we threw that out there and let him address all of that.
No, he tried to extort Mike. He told Mike, either you pay me money or I'm going to write negative stuff about you. Mike didn't bite. And neither did all the other candidates, except for London, who's a fool, if you ask me.
Okay. Speaking of London, I think he's coming on the show next.
That'll be nice.
One of the next couple of weeks.
I got questions for him.
He's in July, I think. He's July 9th or the 16th. London will be up here. And Def. What's the dude from the Yonkers?
Delphine Hughes.
Yeah. They're coming up together.
Yonkers Insider.
Yeah. They're coming up
Oh,
together.
that's going to be interesting.
And he let me run a piece of his this week.
Del?
Yeah.
Del's the man. Del's been around for a long time, man. He's a veteran.
Establishment against London or something, whatever it was. But we ran it on. We got a lot of love on Black Westchester.
Cool.
Yeah. Dr. Bob, so what have you been up to? What's going on? I know you got a couple of things always brewing, you know.
No, I've just been trying to stay abreast of,
Afloat.
you know, my work at school. That's all. I'm teaching the summer session, so it's
Okay.
an entire semester's worth of work in 12 days, 15 days. So It's and a new course, so it's kept me busy with my nose in the books, trying to make sure I can convey the information to students in the way they understand. So that's all I've been up to.
Yeah, because it'd be like, I'll get those calls, like, I work out the house a lot of times, so it'd be like I'm sitting in the house, I realize I haven't left the house all day, because I'm writing and time just flies. And I get the call, I'm passing your block, you got, run the store, anything, blah, blah, blah. So it'd be like a couple of days, I'd be like, hey, Bob, how you doing? I ain't heard from you.
Where are you?
He's like, it'd be the one day I'd be like, yeah, I want to go get something to eat or something. I'm staying in the house, I got some papers to review. Yeah, it was like a whole week of that,
Yeah, so we're now in the mid-semester. Next week will be the tail end of the semester, so it'll be back to life as normal.
Okay. And a couple of quick, July 15th is the 3-year anniversary of Black Westchester.
All right, nice.
The first Sunday in August is the 3-year anniversary of this radio show.
All right.
And celebrating our 3-year anniversary, we will be releasing the print version, the free monthly print version of Black Westchester countywide. You'll see most of it in the cities like Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Yonkers, White Plains, Greenberg. Of course, you'll see it up in Peekskill a little bit, and dribble and drabble, wherever else we can get it. But those will be where you see it mainly, And I'm really excited about that. We're putting that together now. That's been taking all day and all night for us. Well, for me,
nice.
Actually planning it, and I say that to everyone listening. Advertising. So definitely hit me up because I will be hitting all of you up.
Nice,
Jenkins.
nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be hitting everybody up. So that's why we're trying to get all the advertising commitments by the beginning of July, get them paid by July 15th, so we can drop August 1st. We can drop that first 24 page. I think we're doing 60,000 copies throughout the county. So that's the new. That's taking it to the next level for us.
That's awesome.
And we will definitely be We'll definitely be covering more of the county. I always say Black Westchester was never meant to be Mount Vernon Daily News. It's just that I live in Mount Vernon and I trip over 10 stories every time I walk to the store. Like, you just can't help. You can't help but, there's just so much going on in Mount Vernon. But as if you've read the last couple of weeks, a lot going on with the Yonkers campaign, the election season with Yonkers, and Peekskill got some crazy stuff going on up there with Democrats running on the Republican ticket, but going around. Supposedly, one of the the Democratic candidate, Andre Rainey, is the mayoral candidate for the Democrats, and the Republicans have 2 Democrats on their ticket, a united ticket, and one of the Democrats, they call them Medino, the Democratic name only. One of the Democrats in name only that's running on the Republican ticket was walking around getting signatures. And when you asked him who he was running with, he said Andrew Rainey. So people were signing his thing. Well, one of the people that he did that to was Andrew Rainey's grandmother, who then called to find out if it was true, and that's how it came out. So Andrew Rainey wrote a editorial this week to expose it somewhat, and there's been pushback from the other side saying it's not true. So, last year or two, Mount Vernon has been the hotbed for elections. Yonkers and Peekskill seem like they're gonna give Mount Vernon a run this year. So, so we'll be covering all of that. So that's what's up. So Brooke, you just walked in. Say hello to the people. Pull your mic to you. Say what's up.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hello.
All right.
And tell everybody who you are. I see you got your little badge on your little bit.
Well, no, this is a remembrance of a police officer in New York City.
Okay.
Who died at the line of duty several years ago. But my name is Brooke Jones, and I work for Westchester Department of Corrections.
Okay.
And that's hence why I'm late, because I work the midnight shift, so I was trying to get all the sleep I can get.
Then speaking of that, Damon probably has one eye open right now while he's listening to the show, because he has to work tonight too.
He's tuning in somewhere,
Yeah.
And I'm also the president of Westchester Corrections Association.
Okay.
And we're under
Nice.
the umbrella of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice.
Okay.
And so, we got a couple of things going on and a couple of other things planned, but one of our biggest events that I'm working on right now is our seafood bus ride trip.
Okay.
Going
Okay.
out August 19th.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have 10 seats left, so anyone interested in going, can contact me.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
All you can eat. Yeah.
Oh,
All you can eat. Open bar,
Okay,
premium.
please. I'm sorry, President.
Oh, it's
I didn't
okay.
mean to
That's all
interrupt,
right.
but
Thank you very
emphasize all
much.
you can eat,
Yeah.
open bar.
For 4 hours.
For 4 hours.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Plus
we-
shopping.
nice.
Sorry,
Plus shopping at the
At the mall.
Yep, for a good hour.
That's what's
And
up.
yeah, so it should be a good time.
Oh,
Bus
okay.
leaves
Giveaways
at-
on the bus. There'll be giveaways, raffles, everything. We're gonna have a whole.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun time.
Liquor
Fun time.
giveaways. Yeah,
So,
liquor
so,
baskets.
so I'm going through my Facebook feed, and I see pictures of you in front of Cupcake Cutie. Talking about you like
you
my
see
new
how
dude?
that-
Yeah.
And it just so happened, I turned around and said, oh, when I saw the picture, I'm like, oh, I got the nice symbol right in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah,
I said,
yeah,
They might
yeah,
call me
yeah.
and say, take that picture down.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
charge
yeah.
you for that.
Yeah. No, that's good advertising. That's one of our sponsors, Cupcake Cutie Boutique, on 6th Avenue and South 6th Avenue, Mount Vernon. Definitely sponsors us and holds us down every time we have an event. They definitely, and they made my I had a surprise birthday party and my birthday was the day of the Super Bowl, and they made me a football cake. It was
See, I saw that.
It was like
It
I
was
was
beautiful,
yeah,
yes.
red velvet inside. I was like, yo, man, I was
It's delicious. too,
definitely,
right? Cupcakes.
definitely.
Scotto
Point.
cupcakes, just for the record.
Let's go.
Scotto.
Yeah. All right. So, getting into the show. So we mentioned that we have county legislator Ken Jenkins, and you're running for county exec. What made you want to run? What made you decide that you were going to make that move?
Well, certainly, I made that move.
Well, actually, pull the mic to you. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So 2013, after we had an opportunity to take our case in front of the Democrats last time in 2013 and go to a convention and say, well, let's see, whoever wins the convention,
Right.
we're going to support that person.
Right.
And that was Noam Bramson. We did everything we could do,
Right.
and that was not successful. Right. For us.
Now, this is personal. I mean, my personal opinion. I know Norm well. We've had him on the show. Definitely have called him when they've had certain incidents in your show. He always gets back to me with quotes. But I think you were the better candidate in that election, and I think that you could have beat Astorino that year. That from my, outside looking in type of thing.
Well, I think that's actually one of the things that's going on right now, and it's going on with all the politics. And the things that happened in 2016 was a smack to the establishment, both Democrat and Republican. And if we didn't do anything and learn from that, then we're
Right.
making mistakes.
Right.
And that's part of the reason that I put myself out there in August of 2016 and said we are absolutely going to seek the nomination to run for county executive from the Democrats, from the people. Right, and my friend Lorraine knows that we've gone through this battle before. You take your case to the people, and whatever happens, happens.
Right,
And I said that to the party folks, inside, outside, etc. It wasn't another candidate until the end of March.
Right,
So,
right.
So for me, I understand Westchester could do a lot better. I know the things that we have going on. I know that the mismanagement of finances that Rob Astorino has done that's caused us to be in a very dangerous position as far as finances are concerned, borrowing to pay operating expenses, cutting expenses for our health care, for child care, for all those kind of things that make people getting back and forth to work. We're not even going to talk about all the contracts because there is not a union right now in Westchester County that is under contract, with CSCA being out of contract for almost 7 years. So we have significant things that we have to take care of and we have to pay for. And the people of Westchester need that kind of opportunity to have a leader that's going to lead and tell people the truth and not play up to the fears of people, whether that's for fair and affordable housing, whether it's talking about making sure that we can get people back and forth to work, the investments that we have to do in roads and infrastructure and getting people jobs, and jobs is more jobs, and making sure that's fair and equitable across the board. So I am absolutely running to be county executive, taking the case to the people. We're out getting signatures, doing the things we have to do to make sure that we're on the ballot for September the 12th. And again, I think that is going to be a very, very successful run, because at the end of the day, people want to see change, right? They don't want the same old, and they definitely don't want people that's just giving them lip service. So all of you all know that that my history and my record is not just standing up, because I was doing the resist before there was a hashtag for it.
Right.
Before there was a hashtag for that kind of thing, standing up for the people, talking truth to power, and making sure that not only do we understand the right things to do, making sure that we were able to double the tax relief proposed by Rob Astorino, because the only tax relief you got was when I was chairman of the board of legislators, where we doubled tax relief, put millions of dollars into our not-for-profit partners, and saved hundreds of jobs, right? Those are the facts. I don't have to tell people, like, oh, what's your vision? What are you going to do when you're county executive? I said, no, we already did that. Right? We showed we can do that. We can be fiscally responsible, making sure we're not raising taxes, investing differently, and making sure that all of our people are taken care of. And that's why I'm running for county executive.
That's good. Real quick, a couple of shout-outs. We have D. Wilson checking in, Ken Bright, Brenda L. Crump, Lisa Best. Brenda, as always, I said every time we talk about something, she posted. So Lorraine was talking about her site and her page. They posted that. You were talking about the Crab Seafood Fest Saturday, August 19th. She posted the flyer. Like, as soon as you were talking about it,
Thank you.
and
She's on top.
Damon, I don't know which her Damon is talking about. Damon said, pull her mic closer, so both of y'all make sure you're talking to the mic. I think it was you, but I just Okay. But so anyway, what now here's a Black Westchester question that probably will only come from Black Westchester. Now, the county of Westchester is one of the top 10 wealthiest counties in the country. We have, during Obama's first administration, 2/3 of his cabinet were from Westchester. 3 of the 4 major professional sports commissioners live in Westchester. Do you think that Westchester, not Southern Westchester, Mount Vernon, or Rochelle, Yonkers, but Westchester County as a whole is ready for a black man as county exec?
Absolutely, and you know, I got this question, by the way. I got this question in Rye.
Okay.
And I got a little bit differently.
Latimer's territory.
That's right, in his home committee. I mean, we were going through this process, and after my experience in 2013, I said I was never going to go through that process again, because we were going to take the case to the people, and the people will decide. Because, you know, whatever party that you're associated with is not a party label that makes things that happen. It's the people that make things happen. And we need to learn from that. But I was in Rye, and a gentleman asked me at the Rye City Committee meeting, did I think a black man could raise the money necessary to run for county executive?
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's kind of a little more insulting than what I said. That's not.
Well, you know something? When you look around and you say, well, let's look on balance and talk about qualifications and how you bring your message to the table and what things you can and cannot do. The fact of the matter is that when Democrats support the Democratic candidate, they'll get the money that's necessary. Right. So that's how I answered that question right off the bat. And then I reminded them about the 2-term president that happened to be African American that just left office. Right. That raised plenty of money to do the things that are necessary, and won handily here in Westchester, both times. So the fact of the matter is, people are ready for that. The issue is that we have that undercover racism going on. You know, I like to say the lowercase KKK. You know, as Ansari said on Saturday Night Live. The fact of the matter is, people just say, well, why don't we think a black man can't win? Well, we can. We already done that.
Why do you think that?
Well, what's the story? And that's when you get the Black Westchester kind of question, and people go, well, Ken, you know, you can't talk about that. And you know, again, Lorraine and I go way back, so we know that I stand up and I always speak the truth, right? You know, because I can put my head on the pillow at night. I don't mind whatever community that it happens to be in. Our county right now is absolutely ready for that because of the things that are happening in Washington, to see the things that are going on. And you have to have people that are going to stand up and fight for you. And Ricky knows, you know, when we stand out and we talk about issues, whether it's in corrections, whether it's in the departments of social services, or for child care, or for transportation, and standing up and suing the county executive and saying, no, we can't do these things this way. So those people in Rye, when we had that conversation, I reminded them that I was the one that sued the county executive, that stopped the bad plan that was happening at Playland, that was going to put some big, huge huge monstrosity in their backyard, and they
Right,
remembered
right,
that. It's like, oh yeah, so as the black guy that was doing that, right?
Right,
And so
right,
that's,
right,
that's all the challenge is that says, wait a minute. We need to talk about that because, like you said, in southern Westchester, it may not be as much of an issue as it is in northern Westchester.
Right,
and
right.
those folks are the ones that feel that they're progressives and they don't think that, no, race doesn't matter. Well, you know what? You need to take a look in the mirror. And after I got that question in Rye, in George Latimer's hometown,
Right.
and said, well, that was insulting. Well, I didn't answer it as insulting because we get those questions every day.
Right.
We have to face those issues every day as we go around and have to prove that we know what we're doing.
Right.
And even my good friends like Phil Reisman, who doesn't really like all the things that I do, and remind people that I have a grasp of the county and understand what we need to do and how we can make this government work for everybody in Westchester County. And not understanding that is really a fault of those people that are in those communities that don't see past the color of the skin, and then they listen and they say, oh, wait a minute. They're great candidates together. That happened last time with Noam Bramson, right? People said, you know what, Ken, we really want to win, so we think we got to go with Noam Bramson. Okay,
Right,
that's
right,
fine,
right.
And we did, and we stood up for our word. This time I said, that's not going to happen. The people, the voters, are going to make the choice, not the super delegates that happen to be, the executive committee or district leaders, because that's the best way to explain to people what that process is like. It's like super delegates and Bernie Sanders.
With weighted
people
votes and something here.
with weighted votes and all those kind of
and
things.
that is the question, Bob. Like, what the hell is a weighted vote for people that don't know?
Well, yeah,
I have to tell you, I found it to be someone who has studied, heard a lot about a lot of different kinds of voting systems. I found it a little peculiar.
well, the weighted vote is created by the votes in the last gubernatorial election, right? So in our county, we had 1,900 district leader positions open, right, that are available. But there were only 1,300 filled, at the beginning of this process. So at the last month, about 600 people got named dropped into those positions, right? They never carried a petition. Some of them couldn't even vote in the areas that
we
they
know how that
represent.
works.
Right. And again, that's all part of what the problem is right now. The people's voices don't feel like they're being heard. And again, the Democratic establishment, and as a card-carrying member of the establishment, I turn around and I say to people, we need to change, and we need to make sure that people understand that we're out representing them and not just trying to be out representing the internal political elite. And that's been the issue. So again, to Dr. Bob's question, and a lot of people, they're like, well, Ken, what difference does it make? I had a Republican ask me, Ken, what difference does the convention make? I said, it doesn't, right? Because we all have to carry petitions. We all have to go out and take our case to the people.
Right.
And it's not automatic. So why even go through that process, which was the question I said to my executive committee. We should not do this, right? Whoever wants to run should run.
Right,
And
right.
you know what? Whatever the people say, I'm going to be fine with, right? The thing that happened in the last time with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, people felt the system wasn't fair, right? And anytime people feel the system's not fair, and whether that's in your great city of Mount Vernon, right, or here in Yonkers, where the only thing better than one fight is two fights, right? Or anywhere else, if people think the system is fair, they're down with it.
Well, I said that like in Mount Vernon, and I mentioned this like in 2015, we had 2 city council seats up for grabs. 7 people ran.
Yep.
We had 1 mayor position. 6 people ran. In 2016, the Senate seat for Mount Vernon in the Bronx, we had 1 position. Ruth Hassel Thompson. 6 people ran.
Yep.
In 2017, we have 3 city council positions.
9.
There's at least 9 people running.
Yep, 9.
As of right now, and we have 1 controller seat, and there's at least 3 people running. Where in New Rochelle, Norm ran
Unopposed.
unopposed for mayor, and Jared ran unopposed for council. So it was like, I guess they were a little more happier with what must be good to go to a city where you have faith in your government, and you have, we have all those candidates. It says a lot.
Well,
Running
some
for
sensitive
160.
things on that. So in other places like New York City, and that was what the example I brought up, because in 2013 there was the mayoral race in New York City, and I tell people all the time, who was the expected candidate to win the primary was Christine Quinn, right? Until we met Dante, right? In the middle of August, and people realized that Bill de Blasio was a person that had an interracial relationship, and his son, and Dante was his son that he was talking about and doing criminal justice reform, which was a huge issue. And Bill de Blasio wasn't new to that game. He's been a fighter for all of those kind of things. But the establishment had Christine Quinn written in as the Democratic mayoral candidate. She even had some news media, New York Times, follow her and document that, and you could see, and from a political insider view, and I'm not sure Dr. Bob, if you would be interested in that kind of thing, because from a political junkie perspective, that was just tremendous amount of understanding of all those internal machinations that happen, right? Because there's one candidate doesn't mean that everybody's happy with them. They just look at the system and go, well, I can't make a difference, so I'm not even going to get involved. In New York City, they don't do conventions and designations. Whoever wants to run, runs. In places like California, you fill out a form. You don't have to even go out and get signatures. You pay $10 and you're on the ballot, right? There's a balance between what that means, but the system is built to not have people involved, to not get people engaged, and to not make sure that you can hear from every voice from every community, because now the power is being ceded. And it doesn't matter who is in control. No one wants to give up that power, right? And that's really what the challenge is right now. And that's what the thing for me is I'm facing as a person that has been involved in this game, and a person that started in the NACP fighting for civil and human rights, understanding that that is why we make change and how change happens. That's why we're taking this case to the people, and we're getting really great response from all over, right? In Mount Vernon, as you said, people don't realize 41% of our primary vote is black. It's not even black and Hispanic. 41% of the primary vote is black. So there's a lot of people that were always concerned about a primary being won. And with my Hispanic, Latino brothers and sisters that are out there watching how things have been happening or not happening, when the party's just writing in their votes and saying, yeah, they're going to be good just because they're Democrats or Republicans. And, Lorraine could tell great stories about why she does what she does now, because of how she feels that she was treated internally, right? And because I'm involved and I see that, I had people that came to me last time and said, I didn't realize how racist things were, right? Because you saw the votes, and that's why we made people vote in the convention. It wasn't, were we going to win the convention? I said we were running no matter what. So, that's not a good way to get somebody's vote, if we said, hey, if you don't support me, I'm running anyway, right? You're never going to get a vote for like that. I'm sure I lost some votes that way. But the fact of the matter is, the people need their voices heard. And that's what 2016 should have taught a lot of us, that there's angry people out there. You can't just discount majority, them, right? It's not the majority of people still voted for Hillary Clinton, but there was enough angry people in the pockets the way that the Electoral College works, right? You think weighted votes one thing, Electoral College, Dr. Bob, spend like 2 or 3 shows on that. But the fact is, to get to those folks and to have them understand that there's somebody that they could believe in, that they could trust, that when they get into office, that they're going to do the right thing. They're not just going to worry about the developers and those folks. They're going to worry about the people in the community just as much, right? That's from my perspective, from looking at how county governments run right now, it went from being a service oriented to the people that it's supposed to serve, and whether those people are in social services or whether those people just utilize the parks of Westchester County and their award-winning county park system, they expect certain things to happen, and that is not the case anymore, right? We are not delivering the things we should be delivering in the highest property tax county in the country, for the level of services and for the amount of money that gets paid into it. We're just not delivering. We need to make that change, to have somebody that understands that how we deliver and has the respect for the people that work for you, and provide those services as well. And again, I'm looking forward to this, because for me, the battle is on, right? And it is fighting against the establishment in some ways, but no different than Bernie Sanders. He's elected 25 years. You're like, how can you be anti-establishment and be elected for that period of time? I've been involved that much time I understand that's why we're making a difference. And that's why we're talking to you, HA, and we're talking to everybody to say your voice does count.
Absolutely.
And in Mount Vernon, that's actually a good analogy. In Mount Vernon, the last 12 years, the mayoral candidate has not been the party designee.
Actually, yes. Actually, the party lost in the
12,
last...
the last 3 times, the party designee
Right,
was not
because
there.
they went for Clinton when Davis won. They went for Davis when Clinton won, and they went for Davis when Thomas won. Right.
So it's more than just saying that stamp means something.
Right.
And again,
well, actually, we had Councilman Yana Edwards wrote an editorial, and basically he said something along the lines that the party stamp doesn't mean that you win. Like, it's not like the party stamp doesn't mean what it used to mean, or something like that.
Well, and the truth is, again, is because it's still power, right?
Right.
And again, I get the privilege of being able, since I'm an executive committee member, to be able to say that as a state committee person, to say if we did not learn from 2016, we need to open up the tent. We need to make sure we're hearing all the voices, and that doesn't mean I'm hearing your voice like with all the indivisible groups and all the energy right now. That's anti-Trump energy. You can't just say to those folks, well, we want you to do X, Y, Z, and just follow along because this is what we said. Well, that's why they weren't involved in the first place. So we need to make sure that we're getting more voices involved. And again, in places like Mount Vernon is a good example for that, is that people are frustrated and they tell, you know what, I can't be bothered with any of you. Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Everybody got to go now.
It's not even everybody's got to go. It's like, I'm just not going to participate. In 2013, we had a 23% voter turnout.
Ooh,
right?
wow.
In the last Yonkers mayoral race, we added 18% to voter turnout.
That's embarrassing.
Right? So all those things, you could win with record numbers because in Yonkers and in New Rochelle and all those places, we won with record numbers. Yeah, but 18% of the people are coming out.
Right. So what kind of majority is that? Yeah.
You won, and it was great. And I know it's better to win than to lose. But the fact is, there's a lot of voices that are just sitting on the side, and we need to listen to those voices and actually make those changes. And that's what my candidacy is about, right? You'll do that.
So I want to interject and ask a question. Since you, I think, rightly recognize that one of the real problems that afflicts the country is that our institutions are weighted in such a way that ordinary Americans are not getting any input into the political process. How does that apply to Westchester County? And specifically, many of us who are newcomers to Westchester County politics became aware of the immense power that is exercised by Westchester County Board of Election Commissioner Reginald Lafayette, insofar as Brother Lafayette also simultaneously serves as or at least he did recently, as the chair of the Westchester County Democratic Party. And
the chair of Mount Vernon.
And the chair of Mount Vernon. Many of us have felt that it puts him both in a conflict of interest and allows him to exercise undue influence upon the outcome of the election, even in those instances where you may have someone who wasn't designated by the party may ultimately prevail in the races. This has been an issue that has been raised amongst other places in Low HUD, as you well know. Ken, and I'd like to know if, are you advocating any kind of reforms in the whole commissioner system in Westchester County and perhaps beyond, so that we can equalize the playing field and make sure that our inside elite isn't exercising this disproportionate influence over the process?
Well, one thing I want to say first is that the job of the election commissioner, right? If you think about the purpose of that from a political perspective, having the party chairman, and he's not the only one, right? In Westchester, both of them are, right? But there's other places. The party chair has that knowledge to look out for the party, right? The issue that you're talking about is the perception that when people are just seeking office in general and they're not the party designee, right, that the system could be used and worked against them. And I would say that is not true, right? In the way the laws are written. Now, because of the way the laws are written, you absolutely could get tripped up and not know that if you didn't have someone pull your coat or say this is the case. In Westchester's case, for example, all of the forms are online, all of them, right? So whatever forms you need to run for office, it says how to run for office.
Let me stop you real quick. Now, my question, and I've had this, and I've Mr. Lafayette will not be pleased with my comment.
Reggie, don't blame Ken.
I've had this conversation several times with Reggie. Why I feel that it's a conflict of interest. So, say I'm running or for whatever, I'm dealing with the Mount Vernon party, and there's a problem of some sort. The place that I would go to is the Board of Elections.
Right.
So in my mind, if I have a problem with Reggie, then I go to White Plains and complain to Reggie about Reggie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. Like, I'm just like something that, and I will continue, and I've said this since 2014, since the inception of Black Westchester, until you prove to me that is truly not a conflict of interest, I'm going to continue to say that. And he said, well, he's not the first to do it. He's just the first black man to do it. Well, to them, I say, well, when black people try stuff that white people do, black people go to jail. But
black people should not be following systems that were designed to exploit the most marginalized communities and then insist that this is fair and par for the course and it's all right because white people did it.
Right. And, so back to
slavery was legal in the books.
Right, and there were black slave owners.
Yeah.
And I bet they justified their exploitation of their own people in the same way.
So, but to the thing of saying, if there's a complaint in the party, the Board of Elections is not the place to deal with it. Right?
So where do you go to? You go to the Westchester.
So how do you deal with a problem in the party structure is inside the party?
Okay,
and
so
that's really
if I have a problem, so if I have a problem with something in the Mount Vernon party, I then go to the Westchester party.
And your point
and
is
the same person.
It's the same person. That's what.
But what I'm saying to you is, and that was the whole challenge for our friends, in Bernie Sanders' campaign, right? They said, how do I break into this process?
Right.
And that says, okay, you become a district leader. You carry a petition. Guess what? No one could stop you from carrying a petition in an election district, getting the number of signatures you need, which probably gets to be like 5 or 6 in some of the election districts, and be on a ballot for the people to vote for you to be a district leader. And when you get to have enough of those district leaders, then you control who's the person that is the chair at the local committee and then at the county committee. So all of those things that you're talking about, and the point that you're saying that I can't echo enough is you can't just raise your hand and say it's unfair because they're saying this to me because I'm black, right? That's the wrong part, right? No, if it's wrong, it's wrong. You happen to be black, but it's still wrong, right? And the way that the party structure is in Westchester, and it's not in one community, because I get the privilege of going around to every community. It's the same thing. People aren't participating. They're not getting active. They're not doing things. They don't want to get out in 92-degree weather and carry signatures, knocking on somebody's door and say, hey, are you a registered Democrat? Is Ms. Jones home? Blah, blah, blah. They don't want to do that level of work. That's where that change has to happen. People have to get engaged at that lowest level. The district leader, member of the county committee, which is the official term of that, is that it's an elected position, right? It's not an appointed position. It only happens to be appointed because so many people are not engaged and involved. They're looking for people to get involved, right?
They change the district leaders,
They change the district leaders and they make that. But if all you're doing with that is trying to manipulate the system so that you could win to be chair or for elections to win a designation, then we're not doing the right thing. And that was my message to my executive committee, to Yonkers, to the county, and to everybody when we were going around speaking and saying, you know what, everyone's voice isn't getting heard. And the point you're making, people get frustrated, and instead of them having a radio show and a newspaper to be able to say, and a blog to say, hey, I got an issue, they just say, I'm not playing anymore, right? And that's how you end up with 23% voter turnout or 18% voter turnout. And that's where we have to make a difference. And again, it's still power, right? and nobody wants to give it up, right? That's not different from anybody else. So I think Dr. Bob and AJ that the way that people need to do that is they need to get involved. And what happened in Mount Vernon with Richard Thomas, for example, was there were people that said we just need new blood, right? Now some people might have a different feeling about what they decided to do at the time, but that was their decision. That's no different than Donald Trump. There was a bunch of people out there that said we want change. First, inside the Republican establishment, they said they don't want the same old inside the Republican establishment. We want to go rogue with this person that is a businessman, etc. Right? And then for the general election,
wait, and we keep a businessman who most of his businesses have gone bankrupt. I'm just saying, like, we keep leaving that part out. Like,
and people leave that part out because they don't want to hear when it didn't work, right? And they don't want to hear the truth because, again, they're angry about something, right? They're like, well, blame NAFTA for something. It's like, no, you didn't lose your job because of NAFTA. You lost your job because that company's automating stuff, and they don't need 100 workers to do the same thing that they do with a machine now, right? Now, that's the kind of thing that people need to hear more of, and people always go to the points where they can emotionally touch somebody. In Westchester, Rob Astorino did that with housing, right? Put a picture of a project in the middle of 2 white picket fence houses in Bedford and sent that around and said, if that happens, well, the projects are coming into your neighborhood, and that's what you ran from, right? And it was all that subtle kind of racism that exists. It's institutional racism that exists. And the problem for most people is, in the political world, it is not a good thing to say, well, there's racism that we need to deal with, and you need to look in the mirror and take a look and say, why did you make that decision, right? And that's the challenge that I'm putting people in right now, to say, why are you making that decision? There is no one that had, between me and George Latimer, there's not a question who has the most relevant experience in 2017 in running the county and understanding the county issues, because I face them each and every day. It's just the facts, right? It's not saying anything about someone's ability to learn and someone's ability to say what's the difference. Well, that's not the case. I live this, and again, no hashtag resist, no fake news, no alternative facts. Those things were happening, and I was dealing with them. And instead of our the Democratic Party, standing up and saying, hey, look, that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for those people, and having the back of the person that's out there making the punches and taking the punches every day, they're like, ooh, that was too much, right? That was too much too much resistance. Well, now all those same people are talking about resist Sunday, right? They're going to have a march, and they're going to have a women's march, and they're going to do this, and they want to resist everything. And the progressives are like, hey, whatever things that are Donald Trump is doing, you got to do 180% otherwise. And if you even think about anything, we're not going to support you, right? Well, we need to have people have conversations, understand what is in their best interest, and have people vote for that. And that starts in the local community. And whether it's school board, because, by the way, the school board elections in Mount Vernon, that was a slap again to the structure, right? Because all the structure folks lost. Again, right? People need to take that and step back and say, what changes do we have to make? And in the case of the party structure, people need to get involved, be district leaders, and make sure they're making a difference in their community. It's something I advocated, and Lorraine will tell you this, that for when Lorraine ran for office, and her and I sat in the same room and talked about it and said, this is how we can make these things happen. And there's none of, again, my Latino brothers and sisters, when I was chairman of Yonkers Democratic Committee, I said, you need to make your beachhead so someone can't tell you what to do. Right?
He discovered this monster.
Who?
Ken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 30 years ago. And then he asked me to run, and that's how I teamed up. And that's how I started my political career. If it wasn't for this guy meeting me, and Pauline, of course, but he kind of, he took the first step. We met in school 12 when we was in a board.
Yep.
I was representing the incumbent, as a matter of fact. And Ken said, listen, I need you to help me get this guy out. And I said, let's do this. And that's how my career started in politics, with this man right here. That's my disclaimer.
Let me ask you. You touched upon it. There's several comments I have and several questions I have. But one, we dealing with racism, and the county does not believe that there's racism. homelessness and poverty in the county of Westchester. I don't know where they, anyway. But then we were talking about services, and I think the thing you said with the projects in front of the two white picket fence. Well, what happened from what I'm seeing is, what then happened is Mount Vernon, especially, but Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and a little bit of New Rochelle became the dumping ground of all of what they didn't want anywhere else in the county, especially Mount Vernon, and then coming in with a zero budget, which means things go up every year. So if you come in with a zero budget, you got to cut stuff.
Yep.
So you cut the probation office in Mount Vernon, where it's sorely needed. You cut another department which is sorely needed, and then even the Mount Vernon Hospital, where we had more unsolved homicides in the last year than we had in the last couple of years. We don't have a lot of the people. There's been two situations where people were taken to Mount Vernon Hospital, and then they died on the way somewhere else because Mount Vernon Hospital doesn't have a trauma center. We got more trauma in Mount Vernon than anywhere else. We need the traumas, but I'm just saying, like, all of these places, we have more Section 8 or more whatever the HUD stuff, or that's being pushed to Mount Vernon. The undesirables from around the county that they're getting pushed to these, but they're not giving. I can't speak to Yonkers as much. I know homelessness is rampant in Yonkers, but you can't ship these people to cities and then don't give them the funds and the whatever the resources to be able to do this.
Well,
and then you have higher crime and higher other things and unemployment. It's just that's the way it's going to be.
Well, we have two things. One is that from a housing perspective, and this predated Rob Astorino, so I'll try to be fair about things. The county of Westchester was found to have exclusionary zoning, and we lost on a summary judgment. So in the early parts of a lawsuit for the housing that said, you all are not doing everything that you're supposed to do as far as affirmatively furthering fair housing, right? So the nice way of saying that is to make sure that every community has housing that is at every life cycle. So, whether it's low income, public housing, senior housing, housing for people that work in schools and public workers, et cetera, you don't have zoning that allows for that to happen. In that time frame, you would have liberal Democrats say the reason that you have so many of those investments in places like Yonkers or Mount Vernon or New Rochelle or White Plains is because it was more cost effective to do that, right? And you know something? That's one of the anomalies when you want to call people out and say, well, that sounds nice, but you know what? There's people that need those services in the northern part of Westchester too, right? And it might cost us more to build there, but we need to make sure that we have those opportunities, right? We can't just have them in Peekskill and in Ossining or in Tarrytown or Port Chester. We can't just have those things happening in those communities. We need to make sure that we invest across the board. And you need a leader that is going to set a tone at the top that says we have to do this for everyone, because there's poor people in the northern part of Westchester, even in those communities like Bedford that are multi-million-dollar properties that are up there. They have people that need those services, and sometimes it's the support staff that those folks need to be able to do the work that they get to do, right? But it also needs to make those investments in housing, in affordable housing, so that, you know what, the best affordable housing is the one you don't know about. So you don't have a building that's a separate building that's all the affordable housing. You can do that whether it's in 80-20 versions, 85-15 versions. You can make sure that it is taken care of inside of a mixed unit apartment building, right? We could do that. We can insist on that. That is the kind of leadership that you need to make sure that you make a difference. And in Westchester's case, we overspent on the housing stipulation order, right, by $20 million. So we had to acquire 750 units of housing, and as I said the last time I was here, 750 units wasn't integrating anything, right? Out of the millions of people that we have, thousands of units that we have, it was to set a structure. And we have an affordable housing ordinance that says here's how you can make sure that when developers are coming in, to give them incentives to make sure the right thing happens, right? That's the kind of leadership that you need. You don't need somebody that's going to throw red meat at the crowd and say, hey, let's throw the boogeyman and scare people. That's not what we need to have happen. And especially in this time, in this climate where things are so polarized, you need the leader to say, you know what, we're going to work through this together, right? And we can do this together because your kids that are graduating from high school or from college can't afford to live in the community that they grew up in, no matter where that is in Westchester County, because it's so expensive to live in Westchester County. And we need to make sure we spread the benefit and the burden. Right.
Absolutely.
So, if some things have to happen in different communities, right, we need to make sure that that happens in a way that's fair and equitable. We can't have a place like West Help that's been vacant since almost 10 years, right, that the county built, that they're trying to let fall down, but because it was built so well, it's still not falling down in a community that tried to secede from Westchester County and say that's okay. It's not, right? And Greenberg, in that case, is playing along with that because they're holding the property even though it's vacant, right? And that was the best facility that, from my perspective, that we had in Westchester County for families to get people that were homeless, right, or in transition and need, provide the services on site, and then have people move on and be able to be in permanent housing in better structures. That's what we should be about. And I know the people in Department of Social Services, I know that their heart is in that right place. But if they don't have the support from their county executive, it's not going to happen, right?
Well, now you spoke about power, and you spoke about the undercover line of racism. What makes you think that the people that are in power that hear that you want to make these changes are going to allow you to get voted in? They're going to vote against you. Like, they're not. Like, you're hurting what I got going on. Why should we vote? We're not going to vote for you.
Well,
and I see that Damon call back. I didn't hit the button quick enough. Call back in, Damon. And shout to Kenneth Plummer, who's also checking in. Go ahead.
The fact is that when you talk to people and you talk to them in their environment and you say, this is the things that I'm bringing to the table because I understand the burden of taxes, and we can't just start with, my plan does not start with saying, let's just raise taxes, right? I know county government could be smart, compassionate, efficient, and prudent, and we have all of the facts to be able to do that. We wouldn't give away our county airport for $15 million, where we would just, if we did nothing, we would make $100 million more. Right? Mm-hmm. I would ask the federal government to do something different, to say if we really thought we needed that money, but we don't, right? Mm-hmm. Right? We just need to make better choices, and that's what the county executive is going to do. So for me, I know that when I'm county executive, what those folks should be voted for me, and whether those folks live in Bedford that have multi-million-dollar properties that pay more taxes than a lot of us make in a year, right, for property taxes, and you say, well, it's only 2%. It's like, yeah, it was 2% of $50,000. That's a lot of money for people, right?
Right.
So don't act like it's just change out of somebody else's pocket. Act like we're respecting that we're taking money out of your pocket, and we need to invest it wisely to make sure that your property value stays, but people in Westchester are safe and secure. We had the #1 facility in corrections before Rob Astorino came in. We had the lowest recidivism rate in New York State before Rob Astorino came in. We do not have re-entry programs. We do not have the support systems that are necessary to make sure that when people have paid their debt to society, they can get back into society and not have to worry about being a stigma, but more importantly, worry about having to go back, because there's a path that we're supportive of in trying to make sure families stay together. Right?
And the probation office they closed in Mount Vernon had programs like that.
Yep,
so not only did probation, you cut all it down, but you brought up corrections, and I wanted to give y'all a chance to chime in. Anything that y'all want to speak from the corrections?
Well, first of all, let me say it's an honor, Legislator Jenkins. By the way, Legislator Jenkins is the only, I stand corrected. Lyndon Williams, Legislator Jenkins and Legislator Lyndon Williams are the only two legislators, not even my own legislator in Peekskill.
Who is Tesla?
Yes, stepped up and was on the front line in regards to this situation with the officers being hurt on the job and not getting their medical benefits if they don't pass the 5-year period. I have to say, Legislator Jenkins and Lyndon Williams have reached out to me since 2013. They've been on the front line. So in regards to law enforcement and trying to make a change, I have to give it to legislators Penn Jenkins and Lyndon Williams, because they
Thank
have
you.
been on the front line. Especially when we calling you, reaching out to you, meetings. So I have to give those two legislators love and respect.
Thank you.
But with that said, there's a huge problem, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I think we have approximately 40%, President?
Yes.
About 40% new
Yeah.
officers that's entering the Westchester Correctional Facility. There is still this law, not law,
County policy.
the county policy that if you are hurt on the job before 5 years, you do not retain your POMCO medical benefits. I know this personally because I was the first one that it happened to in
Right.
2012.
Right.
And I've been fighting this battle since 2012. You know, you've been there with me, and Mr. Lyndon Williams. And this policy, and let me also, this is not just corrections. This is all law enforcement.
Right.
County.
Right, county law enforcement. So this affects every county law enforcement officer and their family. If you're out there getting hurt, doing your job, getting assaulted, car accident, something, you lose your medical benefits if you don't make 5 years
On the job.
Yeah.
on the job. And I know for a fact, Westchester County Department of Corrections, they emphasize during the orientation and hiring process that you have your medical for life. I know when I was recruited from state corrections, that I remember the captain at SIU was telling me, yeah, this is one of the things we have. You have your medical for life. You have your medical for life. I got hurt on the job, and I didn't find out I didn't have medical until a year and a half later.
Well, there's two things, Brother Baxter. One is that you've been not only coming to the meetings, and that's something that when we talk about being activist and engaged and involved, you can't just be active and engaged and involved and hit a blog site, right? You can't just say, hey, let me email somebody and not follow up. Come into the Board of Legislators, speaking the information to the committee as a whole, right? Talking to people, and the legislators don't have to, right? But I make it a policy to, when people come to the stage or come to the microphone in the Board of Legislators, I'm writing down that information and I'm going to follow up on that, right? And that's the kind of policy that I work, because I feel that that's what people are due when they took the time to come up and speak. And if you emailed or sent a letter, I would do that same level of response, not just, oh, thanks for your letter and good luck, right? Let's follow up and let's find out what was going on, right? So in the case with the correction officers, we did a few things that we could do, right? We did work for a different kind of assault that could happen, because law enforcement could be called in on any emergency situation. So let's say it was a declared emergency in Westchester County and correction officers were asked to be on the street doing something, right? Well, before the law that we opted into at the New York State level, right? Before that happened, you would be out, right? So, yeah, that was something that the union did work through, right? And we were able to get that piece. Now we need to continue to do that work on those 40% new employees that are coming in to say, if they get injured, that is a permanent status, what does that mean, and how does that protection happen for them and their families? Because it really is important, as you've been highlighting for us, and we've been trying to deal with, right? And understand, well, how do you do that? And what's those impacts? Because we're asking you to do a difficult job, a dangerous job, and there's compensation that should be made up for that, as that's part of the contract. And that was where the challenge is on some of these things. I look at things and say, well, what's the right thing to do for a person, right? Not what's in your contract, right? And I think that that's part of what is happening, or happened in your case and in those 40% correction officers. And we have to continue to work on making sure that something that is a policy, because that's a policy, right? Right? A county policy, it can be changed without a contractual thing, and not utilizing it as a chip, because somebody's family is at stake, and that's the way that we should be looking at it, and not even to the place where some people want to look at it, because I have talked to your legislator about this, to John Testa about it, and part of the concern, or like the Republicans' concern, is like, well, how much is that going to cost, right? And not for you, right? Right. In general, what exposure is the county, being open to? It's like, stop. what's the right thing to do for a human being that is working for us in Westchester County, right? That should be kind of the measure of what we're doing that for, right? And if there was so many people that got injured in a particular profession, a particular department, that means we should be doing something else differently, right? We should be making some corrections so that, excuse the pun, corrections, right? But we should be making some modifications in what work environment that there is, so that we would not be exposing county taxpayers to an extraordinary amount of money for something we can fix, right? If we can't fix it, we can't fix it. But in your case, in the case of someone getting assaulted, right, and being on disability pensions, right, we should be making sure that people are taken care of, no different than we would do with a veteran, right? So I think that those are the kind of things that we have to continue to work through. And you know that my view again is what's the right thing for the person and the people that work for us, right? That's the way that they're working on behalf of the people of Westchester County. That's the level of respect that we should show to do that. It's just not $1 in your paycheck. It's the whole compensation package, no different than if you worked for IBM, right? So that's the kind of things that we need to do, and that we're going to continue to work on together.
I appreciate that. And Brooke, you can touch on something in regards to the numbers.
Right. I mean, every day.
Make sure you're talking to you.
Every day, officers are getting assaulted in the jail. They're getting feces thrown on them, urine, or a combination of both. An officer the other day, he broke his ankle in a scuffle. We had another officer that they also recently retired.
Caller, please hold.
He has less than 5 years on the job as well. So now that's another officer out with less than 5 years without any medical benefits. And he probably doesn't even know yet till his medical benefits stop coming, which happened to Mr. Maxwell. Wow. And it's going to happen more because we have like a good well over 300 new officers with less than 5 years. So now you have them responding to codes, but now this is in the back of their heads because now they're becoming more aware that, wait a minute, something happens, I'm not going to get covered. My family's not going to have any coverage. I have a newborn baby at home, it's not going to be covered. So now they're holding back on actually responding or getting involved in a situation, which is going to leave the officer that may be involved in a situation injured or more hurt, So everything is in the back of everybody's mind now. So we need somebody that's going to step in and look out for us, because corrections kind of gets lost, amongst the law enforcement community. Police officers always getting looked out for, and everybody focuses on police officers. Correction officers kind of get, they're like the stepchild of law enforcement.
Well, we got an honorary police commissioner in Mount Vernon who said corrections ain't even law enforcement. So.
Oh, right. A lot of times they don't even.
But then he's not a police officer either, though.
Right.
So just in fairness, but the thing again is that when we look and say what is happening in corrections, there's some challenges and there's some changes that need to get made. There was contraband brought into the jail that if it was I've already saw us in a situation where it was a probationary person that got terminated, right? And there's no way that cameras should be getting into the facility that are not authorized. I mean, as a deputy commissioner that got caught out there doing that, right? That they should have been terminated, right? And it's not because, it's because that's what the message is in corrections that says this is contraband and you can't bring that in, right? So
it was a power selfie thing too.
That's what I'm talking about, right? That's what I'm talking about. And then the situation where there was actually a theft of one of the actors' things, right? So one, I'm not supposed to know that stuff, right? But I have friends, right? And they whisper things, right? But more importantly, more importantly is that that's the kind of message that says we should not have that happen. Once we don't do those kind of things, then we can deal with reality that says right now people sound like they're not taking the action that's necessary that is going to not only protect fellow officers, right? These people are in our care, right? And whether we like them or not, because they were in our care, they're in the county's care. That's why the county provides medical coverage for them, because once they're inside, they have to have an equal level of coverage to do that kind of thing. we're doing something wrong, right? If people are getting feces thrown at them at a regular basis, and they're getting assaulted and those kind of things, it says, well, what other things are we not following up on from a penalty perspective that says while someone's inside that they're not getting the assistance that's required to make sure that their say is actually correctional and that they're able to move forward in life. If they are not doing the things that they need to do, and I do understand from speaking to some of the superior officers that there are things that can be done, well, you know what? It doesn't sound like that's happening, and now people are being in difficult and challenging situations in a place that, by the way, a corrections officer, and my dad was a New York City police officer. He would always say corrections is the most difficult job because you're dealing with the people that got arrested and the officers out in the street had guns and tasers and all those other kind of help.
Can they strike?
No, they can't. They can't strike. Yeah, they can't strike. So that
they can't go on.
No. So,
neither can college professors. All the broke ass people who need to go on strike, who provide essential services to the government, are forbidden by law. And it actually distorts market mechanisms. It denies people of the full power of the threat to strike, and therefore it's almost guaranteed to lead to a decline in the quality of wage and compensation levels. There's something fundamentally unfair about this whole makeup.
And then people look at it with the people that have contracts, and they're like, well, no, they're going to get paid anyway, so they're not interested in making any changes in the contract, et cetera. And you, Dr. Bob, just brought up the opposite side, which people never get to see, right? They don't realize that, hey, wait, if we don't have working condition things that we can address, that those jobs still have to get fulfilled, or we're in trouble, right? And the thing never gets resolved, right? So that's why you have contracts right now in Westchester County with all the unions without a contract and CSCA without a contract for 7 years, right? But on the flip side of that, you also have the management employees that haven't also got a raise for the most part, right? For that same 7 to 10 years, and that's the same quality issue that you have to deal with, right? You pay for what you get. Right? You know, and if you do not do the things that are necessary to protect the people, right, that are working for you, they stop working for you, and they do the minimum, right? In Westchester County, because of its previous reputation, had the thing looking around that said we were doing the best. People were coming up with alternative solutions. The people that were working in corrections came up with different things to say, how can we make things better? And they would bring those to the Board of Legislators through the county executive, sometimes directly to the county board itself, to things like, all right, well, we need a different kind of facility for people that are visitors that are coming in.
We got a handful of callers.
So I'm sorry about that, AJ.
First caller, 914. 964. Please state your name and your purpose for calling.
Hi, this is Gail Baxter.
Hello, Gail. How are you?
Hello. Hi, Gail.
Hi.
Hope you're feeling well.
I've been sitting here listening to this, and I also invited 5 of my neighbors to listen to this interview and to hear the issues. Number one, I want to thank Kenny for your tenacity and perseverance and standing your ground. You've made it perfectly clear that things are bad, but here's the problem. Your average voter, your average person, everything that you have mentioned so far does not trickle down to us.
Well, hold on real quick. Gail, hold on 1 second. Whoever else is on the line, I need you to mute your line until it's your turn to call. I got too much background noises, and we can't hear them.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Okay, go ahead, Gail.
All of the things that you mentioned, thank you very much for confirming that on the outside things are very bad. Most of the people that I know and who vote, none of this stuff matters. Just like Trump. All the stuff he does, it doesn't matter because it doesn't hit home. Starting with the district leaders. I live on the North End, Kenny. You know where I live.
Yep.
I only see my district leader at the time to sign a petition.
Yep.
And I understand from a local councilman that district leaders are supposed to be doing more. And that's the way you can stimulate discussion. Number two, you mentioned starting these discussions, having these discussions. I live in Yonkers, and I think I'm pretty active, and yet there is no platform to have this whole story metered out so more than a handful of people can participate in the conversation. For me in Yonkers for 47 years, I see politics in Yonkers particularly as a club. And most of the elections that has gone past me, I say the fix is in. And I hope you are going to do something that's going to make that not happen this time. When we talk about voter turnout, we have to look inward and see what are we doing. I think it is deliberate that these conversations are not taking place in an urban area like Yonkers with the Democratic vote 2-1. How come it's not happening? I read your newsletters every time I get them. I agree with you on every issue that you have stated, even in tonight's interview. However, how can you get this out to the general population so that only 18% of the Yonkers voters are voting? The stakes are high. Personally, I believe that people in the up-county areas, those are the areas that you've been running, many of your fundraisers, many of your workshops. When I saw your workshop on the campus of Purchase, I said, oh my goodness, that workshop should be in Yonkers. People are not going around digging for information. They are resting quietly in the status quo, since none of the things that you mentioned can get fixed. And it should start getting fixed in Yonkers, starting with affordable housing, starting with homelessness. None of that stuff is getting done here. And my neighbors who are bobbling their heads up and down as I speak to you tonight,
Me too, Gail.
I'm unlikely to even vote. I don't know who to vote for. I know you. I know how strategic you are. I know how diligent you are. I know how smart you are. But I only have one vote. And the issue at hand is getting elected. How do you do that? And what can the average voter do to make that a reality?
Well, Gail, they could do exactly what you're doing right now, which is have their friends and neighbors be at the place to have those conversations. And that's what we've been doing in this campaign. It's been grassroots, it's been street level, it's been going to places, whether it's 5 people, 100 people, 500 people, it didn't matter to us. We've been going around all over the county to have those exact conversations. But because when we have events, a lot of times when an elected official has an event, they're talking at you. Right, and what I've been trying to do is actually sit down, listening to people, and have a conversation to be able to go back and forth, to be able to listen, to understand, and then be able to come up with some suggestions. And that's the way that it has to get done. We got to go back, Gail, old school, right, back to the place where we're doing those in the communities, in community rooms, whether it's a coffee shop or whether it's in the building, whether it's in the lobby, whether it's outside in the front. We have to continue to talk through that. And you're right, Gail, for me, there's one of me too, right? So it's hard to get around to all those county places to do that. And that's why we need a team, and that's what we're doing. We have a team that is on the ground in every community to be able to do that, and we get to come down and talk to them. So we got to do that together. That's the only way we're going to make a change. We can't just throw up our hands and go, it's not going to change.
Now, I want to go. Thank you, Gail.
I have a question.
I got, hold on. We have 2 more people on the line. I think one of them is Damon. Is Damon on the line? Okay. Next caller, name. Please state your name and purpose for calling. Hello.
Damon?
Going once, going twice. Next
DJ?
call. Yes.
Am I the next caller or Damon?
You are.
Okay. Mr. Jenkins, my name is Sandy Burnaby, and I live
Hey,
in
Sandy.
Ardsley. Hi there. Thank you. Thank you for this evening's call. Look, I know it's hard to get a message across, but I would like to know, what is your soundbite? Like, not your soundbite, but like, what are you proud of? You've been in public service for years and years, serving, Westchester County. What are you most proud of? And like, why should I vote for you? Tell me what it is that you envision for Westchester County and why I should vote for you and why I should work on your campaign.
Well, Sandy, thank you for the question. First, what I would tell you is that I understand that our government could be smart, compassionate, prudent, and efficient. That's the first soundbite. At the end of my 4 years as county executive, we're going to be successful if we spend 10% of what we spend in correction involved in our youth, right? So that would be $40 million. That's what we do not spend anywhere close to that. That is going to be part of the measure of success that we have, that making sure that we're doing those investments in our youth. And whether that's in conflict resolution, whether that's in alternative programs that we have, whether that's just working with child care and support services, there's a myriad of things that we can do as an investment in youth. Because it was said, and I'm going to mess up the quote from Frederick Douglass that said it's easier to invest in our children than to fix a broken adult, right? So, Dr. Bob will help me out on my quote, right? And see if right? I was like, no, I can't do that, right? Right, but again, that's the level of success, right? Sandy, the thing for me, as Gail Baxter was just referring to, as far as being able to have the level of understanding, investment, and activity that I've had over the 25 years that I've been involved in public service, whether as a human rights activist or as an elected official. There are so many things we can tick off to name to say, whether it's from political side, which was term limits that we implemented that Rob Astorino did not sign, that we just made into law, or whether it's things that are investments as far as immigration protection acts that we have advanced to moving forward to make sure that Westchester County could be a sanctuary county, to make sure that we're making sure that people are not getting
beautiful.
Right. So
Beautiful.
The Human Rights Commission, there are just a plethora of things that I have done from a law perspective, because I am an activist, because that's where I started from, and that's what I feel I need to be, right? That I'm out fighting for people every day. So whether those are for economic development opportunities, which was Westchester first, to make sure that we had the ability to go to our Westchester-based businesses and make sure that we have DBEs and MWBE participation at Westchester County, so everyone gets a piece of that pie, and so that we make sure that there's investments in those communities and people actually can work on those jobs that are making millions of dollars, and they could live in those communities as well. So there's just a lot of things to be able to talk through from a track record perspective. I'll plug a website. Mine is Jenkins4Westchester.com. So it's Jenkins, FOR, Westchester.com. And we have a lot of those kind of details there, Sandy, that can help you out. And again, we're going community to community to talk about the things that we've been working on. And when I go to the northern part of Westchester, and I'm talking to supervisors up there and talking about water quality issues, I could wax poetic for hours, make your eyes glaze over about how to make sure to protect our environment, because we drink that water down here in Yonkers, and understand how we can save tax dollars for them by the county using the power of regional government to assist things.
Mr. Jenkins, I hope that you never stop having town hall meetings. When you become county executive, that you continue to listen to the voice of the people. Because what happens is that people get into power and then they start thinking for themselves. And I just hope that you always stay connected to the roots. If you're going to be the county executive, then you have tentacles in everybody's community. And if we see your face in Ardsley, and we see your face, like Greenberg, okay, not Ardsley, but if we continue to see your face and your body and your love and your commitment on an ongoing basis, you will win the hearts and the commitment of people. Because what happens is that we don't see anybody. After they're voted in, you never see them again. So if you make a commitment to people that you will continue town hall meetings, that they will always be first in your thinking, and that people will always have a voice and a vote, you could win the hearts and the votes of the people. That just doesn't happen.
And Sandy, that's part of our not only commitment during a campaign, is how I live my life to make sure that we're living and we're breathing and walking the talk. So, when I was standing last night with our Muslim community as they were doing a break from a Ramadan event for a mosque, masjid, that they're trying to do in Chappaqua that they've been working on for over 10 years, raised over $15 million to help build, and it's given a hard time. I was standing with them as far as making sure that gets done, standing against Islamophobia, and all the kind of things that Westchester County should be helping to lead on. And that's the kind of commitment that you're going to continue to have.
Good, thank you.
We have, I got one more caller. Caller, please state your name and your purpose for calling. Caller?
Hello, Lisa Beth.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you? I'm calling. It's Lisa Bess. I'm a community advocate at large, and I'm going to be the voice of the grassroots community, the single parent, the person half a paycheck away from being homeless, the person working 2 jobs for Westchester County's very high rent, and so forth and so forth. We go way back.
Yep.
Sister Lorraine and Brother King.
Yes,
we go way
do.
back, and we've been grassroots warriors for a long time. And as affluent as Westchester County is, the people that suffer the most are the people who have the least money. And the least money seems to equate with the least voice, the least vote, and the least power. So when we're out trying to encourage the people that your vote is your voice, and they're looking at the way that the parties are dismissing them, how are we going to keep people encouraged that their concerns are going to be addressed? They're not going to be gentrified out of their communities. Their kids are going to be able to get jobs that's not seasonal. Parents are going to be able to go to work and get daycare. The list goes on and on. So to the grassroots community that's the backbone of Westchester County, in terms of working in jobs in stores and hospitals, what do you say? How do we keep them people encouraged to trust the vote of the people who say that they're there for us?
Well, Lisa, first it's good hearing you, right? And again, as you said, being a warriors in this battle, one of the things is, one, you have to look at track record to say who's been there and who said they were going to be there and who was actually there, right? And that was one thing. But to have that voice and to tell people, again, do not give up. Do not give up your right to vote, because that is your voice. Because when we go through numbers and people look at communities, they look at who's voting, and that's how people get impacted, right? If they know that, you know what, that community is going to turn out, and if you don't listen to their concerns, then they'll make sure to address the concerns. I have been, again, an advocate and a human rights advocate and a warrior in this battle to make sure that the rights of every individual are protected and listened to and respected. So we're going to be able to tell people, that's like, look at the record, right? And whether those people are trying to take public transportation in Westchester County, where right now, they tried to make another change under the table to eliminate our bus service that goes through Yonkers, specifically Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and New Rochelle in the 7th line, trying to do that under the covers without getting some input from the people and say, well, how could that work? Yes, we know it takes too long to get from one side of Westchester to the other side of Westchester, but what things and changes can we make that are going to assist people and not make their life rougher? And in the event that you need services and support services, we went backwards in Westchester County under Rob Astorino. We used to have a one-stop, right? So you had a one-stop shopping experience, if you will, if you had to need services. Right now, if you need services in Westchester County, you have to go to 3 or 4 different places to do that. That's by design, so you don't want to go get them, right? Or you can't get them because you can't pull your child, get them out of school early to go over to the place to get the assistance that you need. That's all by design. We made Westchester easier to work with businesses, right? But we made it harder for the services, for the consumers that we're supposed to be serving. And, under my county executive,
I want to just add this one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing.
Yeah, Lisa.
Go ahead.
Go
You can
ahead,
add
Lisa.
Oh, okay. When we had the last election with Trump, the voter turnout, I was election inspector, and I live here in Mount Vernon. The voter turnout was phenomenal. It was outrageous, and it was mostly young people who had never voted before. One girl came all the way down from Albany from college to vote for the very first time. And then Trump happened. So what I'm getting at is, with all of the people who want to get involved in the new voices and new leaders of tomorrow after this, your job gets harder. What do you say to keep them encouraged?
What we say to them is that you've got to continue to be involved and not get discouraged, right? You're going to have some losses around the way. Over the period of time that I've battled in this battle, and all of us around this table have battled, we have faced adversity. It's not about what happens when you get knocked down. It's what you do to get back up and what you do when you get back up. And that's part of the lesson that we have to learn, and that's part of the lesson that we have to teach people, is that failure is not an opportunity lost. Failure is an opportunity to learn, right? You know, so sometimes you lose and sometimes you learn, right? So, you know, at the end of the day, we have to have that message, and we have to continue to have that inspiration for our young people, so when they do get involved and they get involved in these organizations, that they're not getting turned away and pushed back by the establishment who doesn't want to give up that power, and they want to send people a certain way, right? And that's part of my leadership style that we've been able to do, Lisa. You know it. And again, as Gail said, the more the people that get to know that, I'm counting on all of y'all to help do that messaging, because you know the things that we've done together, and you know what heart is in the right place. And you know at the end of the day that we're not going to be walking away from people that need services and need support, because, again, it's where I grew up from. And you, Lisa, you said you were 1.5 paychecks away. That describes pretty much, everybody, right? I've been in a place, in my private life, watching, in my private life, watching what I do and how it impacts those folks, right? People know that I work for Apple. They know that I had a job as a county legislator, and I was the CEO president of the IDA. That's 3 jobs, and which there people look around and say, well, Ken, how do you understand? I understand because I see what happens when people are trying to run out of work to catch that last bus, or they're going to not get home, right? I see what people do when they don't have support services at home with a child care provider that's going to make some sense, that they're worried about their child, or they're worried about their adult, a parent that they're looking out for, right? Or they're worried about their family members that are spouses or significant others when they don't have the services, and then they have mental health needs, because being an elected official, we probably have all a little bit of mental health needs, and making sure that we're able to balance things. And those are the kind of leadership traits we have to continue to do together.
I just want to say real quick. Someone told me that when I said you were going to be on the show, they were like, I think that's the guy that helped me find that cord in the Apple store in Ridge Hill. That actually was you.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm always and people ask me that, last time in campaigning and in 2013, I got some pushback from my campaign team. They were like, well, Ken, you need to stop doing your work at Apple, because, I'm like, I've been there 6 years, right? And, I happen to have a nice title from a genius perspective, a lead genius, that kind of stuff like that just sounds cool, right? Right? But at the end of the day, it's trying to make sure to learn different things, and you could learn from the best. And I tell people that. I said, Apple is the #1 company in the world for a lot of reasons. I said, but when you walk in, do you know who's really running things? And they're like, no. I said, everybody looks the same, right? They're like, yes. I said, that's the kind of messaging that you can help with, and everybody's important, right? Whether they're the cleaner or they're the store leader, it's the same kind of messaging. It's the same voice. And that's the kind of things that we can help bring out in government, and making sure that when we impact people, how do we do that, and how do we do that with a smile, right? And I cannot tell you how many people that see me that go, is that? And they go, yeah. And they said, you know what? You have a real job, right? You really understand, because people don't think, Lorraine know this, it's like, they don't think elected officials a real job, right? I don't get to go out in the store and have a bad day, right? I don't get to go in the gas station and somebody like spill coffee in me and I go, oh my God, no. I'm an elected official all the time, right? So at the same time of doing that, I'm a human being, and I understand people have concerns, and I'm going to be there all the time to help them out. I do not ever people walk up to me and say, Mr. Jenkins is like, I can't speak to you. So, of course you can.
We got one more question? Go ahead.
I do. This is Sandy again.
Hi, Sandy.
Okay.
Mr. Jenkins, like, make note that Emmanuel Macron, president of France, what's he, 39 years old?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Make
cute.
note, Justin Trudeau, president or prime minister of Canada, these are the two leaders in this world now. And somebody just asked the question about, like, what are we going to do about all these young people who came from Albany? They came from everywhere to vote. They are in despair. I just want to say, somebody's got to galvanize the young adults in this county and see them flanking you left and right, and knowing that they are in your cabinet, they are around you, their life is what is going, they are part of your team. And stop, like, pointing to these old white people that are running everything, and just bring in the gay, the queer, the trans people, bring in the Latinos, bring in the blacks, bring in the white people who are, like, transformative. Bring in a team around you that represents the people who came and voted and feel despair. The reason why these young people are, they're never going to come back to the voting booth, because they, look what they did. They came out and they got this garbage called President Trump. I just really encourage you, keep talking to the community and bring the community around and have them be your leadership and have you be that visionary leader that we need. We are sick and tired. We're just sick and tired. Just look at, I don't know, mirror Trudeau, mirror Macron, mirror the youth of. We've made a mess for the future of our children. Bring our young adult children into your party and bring them into your leadership. Have them speak on behalf of you. Give us some hope here. I'm 65 years old. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about my daughter.
Aww.
You know, 38, 36 years old. These are the people that, these are qualified adults who are running the country of France, the country of Canada. They're certainly able to help you run the county of Westchester.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add, I think there's a couple of things that need to be borne in mind when we're considering the historical moment that we're in, and specifically the role that social movements have. I must say that my sense is that a lot of Americans, when they speak about previous chapters of historical change, have a rather oversimplified notion of the span of the struggle that was involved. For example, ordinarily when we talk about the civil rights movement, we tend to mark its onset with 1954 with the Supreme Court's decision in Brown v. Board of Education, and we largely see its culmination 10 years later with the passage of the so-called Second Reconstruction Acts, the Voting Rights Act of 64, etc. But actually, when you study the history of the civil rights movement, at the very least you mark its onset with the establishment of the NAACP roughly in 1909 or so, 1910 perhaps. And even before that, maybe you could start with the Niagara movement, which started 5 years before in 1905. My point is that this is a 50-year struggle, and young people need to steel themselves for the kind of struggle that we are confronted with today. It's not going to be one that's won overnight. Rather, it's going to be a multi-generational struggle that may not bring about qualitative change in our lifetime, but the lifetime of our children. Right. So we have to be prepared for that. And the most important thing that we need today, more so than new faces, is new ideas.
Right.
Because we have, let us be honest, look, if we're honest with one another, since 1970, there has been an explosion in the number of black and Latino elected officials here in the United States, largely under the aegis of the Democratic Party. You had something like in 1970, roughly about a couple of hundred. Today, I think the Joint Center for Political Economics, the leading think tank on black political life, puts the number over 10,000 elected officials, black elected officials. And yet, the reality is that the quality of our lives remains largely unchanged, especially for those of us who are on the lower end of the socioeconomic totem pole. So it's not just going to be people who look different, but people who actually think differently. And what that requires is a more thorough examination of the Democratic Party playbook. Since we're talking about Democratic Party politics here, we can simply eliminate a Republican option. This leads me to a question now, and it leads me to a question here. Mr. Jenkins. When you talked about your record, one of the mantras that you invoked was the idea of tax relief. And you said that you were able, whatever accomplishments you had, that it did not sacrifice tax relief. And I have to tell you, when I heard tax relief, it, resonated with me as the catchphrase of many fiscal conservatives here in the United States. Many of them more leftist, liberal leaning would say that the big problem we have is that there's been a big shift in the tax burden, and that we don't need to talk about the elimination of taxes altogether, but maybe the reinstitution of some sort of progressive tax system. And the reason that I mention it is because it seems to me that should you deliver on the promise of more tax relief, or at least holding people's taxes steady, then it's going to be, I have a hard time seeing where we're going to get the additional monies in order to fund some of our youth programs. And so it's always a possibility. Efficiencies could be a key here, but I want to hear you expound upon it just a little bit more, because I want to know where this money is coming from, and is a reconfiguration of tax policy part of this mix?
So our answer is not a reconfiguration of the mix. It's really a reconfiguration of how we utilize the $1.8 billion that we have in Westchester County in our budget, and how we make those investments. So again, if we're doing the right things in our $40 million from corrections, they never made it to corrections, right? That we never had to have the correctional facility to do this. So that's an efficiency through that particular perspective. We lost money from our federal housing court case, right, because of the recalcitrance of the Astorino administration, costing Westchester $25 million that we would leverage. So we would take that $25 million and we would utilize that to do different things. So that's $25 million more that we don't have to deal with. With our airport, it's even easier than that. If we don't do anything, we'll make $100 million more than the proposal Rob Astorino put in front of the Board of Legislators, and even the thing that they're working on right now, which has a lot of different implications. $100 million is like, okay, well, we could do a lot of different things with that. At the end of the day, when we go through all of that, you might get to a place that says, well, we have to go to the people and say, we need to invest in this, right? Well, how do we make that happen? But you have that through those town hall meetings. You have that through the community that says, we really want to have this happen. We want to have this particular level of service. This is what we're expecting in the highest property tax county in Westchester County in the country. We're expecting that. That's how we have to do that. And to the place that you're talking about the rethinking, I happened to be with Congressman Ellison last night at that Muslim event, and got a chance to talk to him, and he's like, we have to do things differently in the Democratic Party. We have to get back to those roots to be able to get back to the place of actually talking and worrying about the school board elections to the Senate elections. We can't be just so focused on national that we forgot the people in the grassroots because we're taking things for granted. But as far as dollars are concerned, it's not just a reconfiguration of the income tax structure, because in Westchester, it's really just the property tax that deals with our levels of dollars that come in. That have been fixed at about $500 million. So if we have a $1.8 billion budget, and we have $525 million of that come from property taxes, then we have a lot of leveraging that we do with dollars that we can deal with, and we can make a difference, and we can make sure that those dollars go longer. One of the examples I gave Rob asked me when I was working in 2010, and we used to talk about this stuff, right? I said to him, with childcare, he was talking about trying to change childcare to New York City rates. I was like, well, that sounds interesting, except New York City has a lot of other formulas around it. When Rob Astorino came in office, parent share was 10%. So we're not talking about 100% fully funded daycare that's under social services. We're talking about people that are working and that they need additional assistance to provide their children appropriate childcare, so we save money in schools, right? So that people are prepared to learn, they understand the learning environment, and they're ready to learn. Right? If we invest that dollar right, we don't have to spend the same money we spend in social services, and we don't end up spending it in corrections. I said to him, I said, we don't have to do this program that we were doing that when he came in, which was a scholarship program for people that were just going to start to work.
Oh,
right?
God, I
right?
remember
Right?
that.
So we had a scholarship program to help people that were working, that were trying to make sure that their child could be in licensed child care scenarios, right? And Rob Astorito cut that out. I said, it's $100 a person. We don't have to spend that, and you're right. But if we don't spend that and the person ends up to be in our social services system, that means that person is we have to pay $1,200 that we have to pay. Right? And I said, but you know what? If that math doesn't work for you, if that person is not successful and they end up in our homeless shelter, that's $6,000 a month. So $100 that we don't have to spend or $6,000 that we do. Any questions? Right? That from a math perspective, there should not be that. And all those things, Dr. Bob, get together and you put those things into the mix, that $1.8 billion, and that's how you make those differences. And that's how you make those levels of differences that impact everybody, whether they're in Yonkers or whether they're in Bedford. It doesn't matter, right? And that is how we should be doing as leaders. And that's going to be the challenge, as you said, with bringing young people involved, because they're like, superstars and superhuman beings, and they want it immediately. My two boys and my daughter, right? They want things instantly. They want to walk in and they want to be the CEO of the company, right? Right? And I'm like, I know I'm not showing that level of work, and I know my wife never showed that level of if you get it instantly, right? We have to get the folks involved and say it takes time to do work, but we got to listen to you. And that's part of the problem, with the new people, and whether they're new young people or not so young people that come and engage in these political processes, they're almost always shut down, right? They're shut down
They're
because
so much smarter these days.
they
really are.
But
You try to shut them down.
I spoke at a career day recently, and I spoke on that where everybody wants to be the CEO. And everybody wants to have their own company. Sometimes you got to partner up with people. I said, so you're the CEO of your company. What's 100% of nothing? I'm saying,
that's right. Divide by zero is zero.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes 20% of something big is better than 100% of nothing. Yeah.
And again, and to be fair, for all of the people that are young people that are getting engaged in the system is not set up to let new people in, right? No matter what system that happens to be, as you said, the Democratic Party happens to be going through a catharsis right now to say, what do we want to be, right? And that, from a national level, because, we should not have lost as far as people are concerned. There was no poll that said Hillary Clinton was going to lose, right? And then for most part, people looked and said, Donald Trump, nah. Well, it is what it is now, right? So we got to look and say, what do we need to do differently? And we could start that right here in Westchester. And that is part of what we're trying to do in this movement, is to make sure that people feel that they have a voice and an opportunity to be engaged and involved. And to the point, the reason I'm wearing my African gear, well, you all know, but some people may not, is that we had African American Heritage today in Yonkers with the parade, etc. And I haven't had a chance to get back from the park, but we had 8 young people work with us doing petition signing in the park that's engaged and involved, and they're young people, right? So they're young people that are engaged in the process, going out there and being part of the process and understanding what is in it for them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that in politics. I tell people that all the time. Being selfish about politics says what's going to happen in your community, right? What's going to happen? Being selfish don't mean, what job you're going to get for me, right?
Please remind everyone of that one.
Right? It's like, it says what's going to happen in the community. How can you influence the community? How can you make sure that certain things happen in the community? And quite frankly, what AJ was saying before, how do you not feel like you're a dumping ground? Because if you feel like you're a dumping ground, then people react like it's a dumping ground. And that's not the case, right? When I was chairman of the Board of Legislators, we dealt with and got that Memorial Field thing done, right? There's no reason it should still be in the case, that a situation that it is after 3 different mayors, right? because it was under Clinton, then Clinton Young.
Well, it was before and beyond. It even predates that when in '90. I was reading an article in '95 when Davis was then mayor-elect, and he was county legislator at the time. So even before he got in there,
well, we actually got something passed,
right,
under Clinton Young,
right.
So Clinton Young got something passed, and it was a combination a bit between the county and the city of Mount Vernon, and then Mayor Davis came in and said that wasn't a good plan and wanted to make some changes, and we're like, no, the county gave you money to do this. That's what we have to do. Right?
Now I didn't want to bring Memorial Field up, but that's always a hot topic, and maybe because you were there, you can shed some light. Like I've heard various things from various people, which is why we had forums. So you put them all in the room. It's harder for one to blame the other when the guy's sitting right next to you. But even though they still did. One of the things I heard was that in the county's proposal, they were then trying to turn over certain streets that were county roads that Mount Vernon would then have to pay to keep clean and take care of, and Mount Vernon said they couldn't afford that, and that was part of the deal that they were pushing back against.
So the money is from a program called Legacy Programs, and those dollars again predated Rob Astorino and and those dollars were a trade that said to create open space in urban areas specifically, right? That there would be a trade that you would take county roads over for the local municipality, and the county would invest dollars into parks and open space, right? Because green space is good for everybody. Right. So that is what we were doing. Mount Vernon did do what they were supposed to do. So Mount Vernon took over the roads that they were supposed to take over. The county put up approximately $9.3 million.
Right, what they gave up two, I think, and it's like they gave up two. I think there's like 6 point something left or something like.
So the money was there to do the particular project. So we did what we were supposed to do. Mount Vernon did what it was supposed to do, as far as getting the money or the ability to get to the money is concerned. And there were changes in architectural things instead of having
administration,
change administration, but also change of direction. So there was supposed to be soccer fields, and instead of soccer fields, which was necessary based on the study that was done, right? Mayor Davis wanted tennis courts, right? And guess what? We said at the end of the day, the county is not trying to run Mount Vernon. And is not trying to tell Mount Vernon what to do with its money, and for those things, I was like, you want tennis court, you can do tennis courts, right?
I'm moving up because we're coming to the close of the show, but I want to move it forward. One of the things that I had said to Richard Thomas that concerned me. So Clinton did what he was supposed to do, and he got it approved. Davis then came in, change of administration, change of plans. Now the county agreed and approved of Clinton's plan. So did that mean with the new plan that Davis put forth, now the county had to then agree to that, or they can still go back on the Clinton deal? And the reason I was asking that question is, if we have a new mayor, which now we have, Thomas is then going to come in with another plan, and does that plan now then have to be approved by the county because they approved the Clinton plan? And there's not, you understand what I'm saying? Like, and that's been my concern. Like, another plan, how do we deal?
The easy answer is that there is a portion of the plan that it is irrelevant who the mayor is.
Okay.
Right? So the part of that plan is the middle field, right? That is supposed to be, I guess, baseball and football, right? That part is supposed to be done.
And the track.
And the track around it, right? That is fixed. That's part of the bonding. It's part of the law. It's part of whatever things that happen. And if there were to be a change in that, there would have to be a new vote. But without that, the plan is the plan for that. The thing like Ernie Davis wanted was the stands differently. He wanted to keep the mean Joe Green stands. And we're like, you know what? It costs $6 million. Do whatever you want, right? But should you spend $6 million in keeping that architectural gem, which Ernie Davis, Mayor Davis said that it was, right? Or do you need to buy new fire trucks, right? That's your call. That's not the county's call. So every time that there's a discussion and dispute about the Memorial Field, I'm like, 6 lanes of track, a football field, a multi-purpose field, it gets done. Period. Right. And the problem.
I think they were arguing the 6 because Clinton's was 8. His did have 8 lanes, And Davis had 6 lanes.
Whether it's 6 lanes,
right.
whether it's 6 lanes or 8 lanes, I think the reason that it was 8 lanes, and I believe that is correct, right? The 8 lanes was because it has to fulfill a county purpose, right? So it has to be a standard.
And it could be you can use it for tournaments or whatever.
Correct.
Relay.
It has to be able to be utilized for county residents, right? And for county purposes. So it needed to be an 8-lane track as opposed to, I guess, the 6-lane track that's at Mount Vernon High School.
Right.
So whatever ways that has to be, do it. Right? I mean, it's really, to me, it's not a challenge.
So from the county, last question on that.
Yep.
From the county, being county legislator, from the county's perspective, what does Mount Vernon have to do for the county to release the rest of the funds for this project to be done?
So the way that it works is it's not a reimbursement program. It's not the county just throws $6 million at your feet and you do what you want, right? So it's stages. So what Mount Vernon needed to do was just to move forward with a plan, right, that says we're doing this field, we're doing this, and we need X amount of money to do that. Not $6 million. It's $100,000 or $300 or $2 million, or whatever numbers it is to do that. And they're going against a budget that has been set forth for them. And anything outside of that is Mount Vernon's money, right? And Mount Vernon can do, again, whatever it wants, what its city council agrees to.
Right.
And they can move forward with that. I mean, I've had many conversations with Maureen Walker about that, because it was a question on when did Mount Vernon need its money, right? And the way it was structured, because there's an understanding from the county of the local municipalities, and they don't have the same deep pockets that Westchester County has from a capital perspective, that they didn't have to put up money first, right? So the county paid for the cleanup, and that was part of the problem. We paid $3 million to clean up the site, and now it looks like it has to get cleaned up again, right? And the county's not paying for that.
Right.
The county's not. Mount Vernon has to, and whether DEC and whether those folks are involved. So to answer your question, no, unless there's a change that the city wants to do, then it would come back to the Board of Legislators. And quite frankly, I don't ever see 12 people voting for that again.
Right.
You should take the thing that you have and make it work.
Okay.
And Mount Vernon can do that. And again, it's a gateway, right? You get off the hutch, and you don't want to look at a pile of dirt, right? You look at Memorial Field and home of the Knights, all the kind of stuff like that. That's
now you got a pretty offensive
wall of fame,
wall of legends,
a wooden wall of legends.
You can't see what's inside. But
yeah, I know.
two comments or statements that you speak to kind of quickly, very, very quickly. You were talking about the party making up its mind, and you announced in August. But, I'm also on WVOX, and I listen to them a lot. Basically, the front runner, even though you said that, the party's person was Mike Spano, who had never announced that he was running. That was he was the person until he said he wasn't going to run. Then it was they want to see if George Latimer's going to run, Tom Abernathy or whatever, and then it was a female, whatever her name was. He was just
Amy Paulin.
Yeah, Amy Paulin. So that brings me to the other comment that I've heard about you, and you can speak to. They say that you are too black for white people and not black enough for black people. So, I mean, but that is a popular saying.
So I've never heard anyone say to me that I'm not black.
Well, they don't say it to you. They just say it about you.
They say it to AJ.
Well, not just to me, but they say it's been said about you though.
Well, because he's educated.
Something. One of the things that has been a challenge, and what I said to people was, well, you should look at that as a person that is a voter and say, can you tell me why?
Right.
Why the person that we're looking for everybody else that doesn't look like can?
Right.
And when we get to have an opportunity to speak, as we did with Tom Abernathy and Latimer and David Spano at various events and forums that were put on by different people, people walked away and said, ooh, wait a minute. They're both qualified. They're both great.
Right.
So you know what?
They're shocked, he's good.
Right. So we get back to that place that says, you know what? People need to put that mirror up and understand why they're making the choices that they're making, and that new racism isn't thinking you're racist.
Right.
And saying, why are we making those choices? Do we have the quality that we need from a support perspective? we're not even going to talk about what Dr. Bob was talking about with the power positions, because it's not the number of elected officials you have, it's what happens when you go for different positions, right? You know, so it's happy to have black judges that have 3 people that work for them, but when you're going to be the county executive and 5,000 people are going to work for you and you're going to be in control of a $1.8 billion budget, all of a sudden there's questions about how you've been standing up and resisting and things not getting done, or things like, you know what? We really got to look inside ourselves, those folks that claim that they're progressive and those folks that claim that they are not racist or not making decisions based on race.
Right.
That's just not true.
Right.
That institutionalized racism, and that was, you know, I'm sure there's a whole nother show you're going to do on that thing with Bill Maher, and that said, hey, that's part of the problem, right? People feel they have privilege to be able to execute and not realize that there are significant racism continuing to happen to black and brown people every day.
Absolutely. I want to cut you there, and I want to, because we have very little time left, I wanted to give you the opportunity for those who are listening, for how people get in touch with you, your website, if they want to volunteer, if they want to support you, how do they contact you?
And thanks again, AJ, and thanks for all the panel today, and which so some old friends and seeing them hanging out for a while. Our website is Jenkins for Westchester, so it's JenkinsFor Westchester.com, and all ways to contact me are on there, right? So the fact of the matter is, we really need everyone's support and everyone's energy. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak people before politics. We continue to be in Black Westchester and continue to try to make sure the voice of everyone gets heard. So again, I want to thank you and the work that you all do to make sure that those voices get heard. And at the end of the day, I am hopeful that people, when we're working together, will make a difference. Black, brown, Asian American, Hispanic, Latino, our folks all over to do that. And I'm going to just do one last thing and a shout out. You know, we have this immigration craziness going on right now. We have things going on with the Puma in Ossining tomorrow, where a young man was taken and he's supposed to graduate in the next week. Right? We had something happen in Yonkers, because I was talking to Dr. Quezada about that in Yonkers, that didn't hit the Richter scale the same way, but the same thing happened. That's happening all over.
Absolutely.
So we got to stay woke. And we got to still continue to be vigilant and work together.
When you hear about those, please contact us so we can do something on it.
Yes,
and for everybody who's tuned in, you could be doing anything else right now, but you decide to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show, every Sunday night, 6 to 8, on InTheMixRadio.com. Next week we have Nicole Benjamin on next week, and then I forget who's on the week after. But until next week, we'll see you. Peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.